Hey everybody, welcome back to the second installment of my videos about the Olympus menu system, one of the most confusing menu systems out there, but not really. Okay, what I'm going to get into in this particular video is some of the visual aids that you can use to help you understand a little bit more about what's going on with the Olympus menus. Right, to get started, let's have a look at something that maybe isn't so obvious. You'll notice that on the first two shooting menu background screens, there's actually there's an image of the camera itself. On the third one, there's an image of photos, so you will know that when you're seeing pictures of photos, this particular menu is related to playback, and it's just a quick general jog of what you're actually going to be doing when you go into this particular menu. The cog one will have the cog things. Now the cog menu is the stuff that you would change that most ordinary users wouldn't change. For example, how to set up autofocus, what to do with certain buttons and dials on the camera, change the way the camera releases, change things about the display, the exposure, the flash settings, the graphical qualities, and so on, and so on, and so on. The cog menu is probably the scariest menu out of all of the Olympus menus, but once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. Then the last one that we've got over here is the cogs. So there's your visual aid again. You'll see the spanners there. That's going to do things that are more to do with the software of the camera. So for example, you've got the firmware, you've got the Wi-Fi settings, you've got the recording view settings. That's the playback once you've taken a photograph, things like that. Okay, so that's one of the visual aids that Olympus provide. Another aid that they've provided is they actually have a pop-up item that you will see if you go into a specific menu. So for instance, if I'm on this menu here and I want to see more about what that menu does, press the info button and we can see that it tells us it's a menu about autofocus and manual focus settings. You can leave that on. I don't, because it tends to pop up all over the place and it makes the screen look a little bit too busy for me. It would be better if that particular pop-up item was a different color than the rest of the screen, but because it isn't, I just find that it's just too visually confusing, so I have mine switched off most of the time. Okay, another cue that you can use, or visual aid that you can use, is that Olympus menus will always tell you what's going on down at the bottom over here. So the back bit will tell you to press menu. If you want to go back in the menus, press the menu button. If you want to set something, press the OK button. And if you're really deep into a menu here, for example, let's just go to any one over here. No, let's go back here now. Just want to get to a more complicated menu. There we go, yeah. So when you see this over here, you'll know that there's something further into that menu. There's also a little arrow on the right-hand side over there to tell you that you can now go a little bit deeper into that menu, and then there's a pop-up. Usually, there's also a slight description once you get to the base item. So for example, if I'm doing the dial function settings, and I go into that thing there, you'll see there's my little arrow to tell me that there's another item in that particular menu. I'll go in there and it will tell you what's going on. So they've put a visual cue in there now to tell you that you're adjusting the rear button or you're adjusting the front button. To go back out of this, I just press back and there we go, I'm back at that. Button functions, same sort of thing. Now these can get quite complicated. You just need to work through them and try and figure it out. But most of the time, it's fairly intuitive, so you should get the hang of it. Well, one of the biggest problems that you would have with the Olympus system is that sometimes they name things a little bit differently to what you'd encounter in a Nikon or a Canon camera. I know I had the same issue with the Fuji camera that I borrowed last year. I just couldn't understand what they were actually talking about. So just persevere, you'll eventually figure it out. And a lot of the success of using the Olympus menu system is going to come down to memory. So for example, if you know that you're going to be changing something on a regular basis, just remember where it is, which menu it's in, and you should be fine. So my example here would be I need to sometimes change the display. So if I'm shooting in the studio and I'm in manual mode, I don't want the exposure to look the way that it's going to look if I was compensating. So if I was outside shooting in aperture priority, I would usually have the front dial set to adjust the compensation, and then I would see exactly what that is doing in the electronic viewfinder. But in a studio setup, I'm in manual mode, and if I do that, the screen is going to be black most of the time because I'm shooting at f11, f14, and when you're shooting at that dim level, you've got the flash that's going off for a fraction of a second. You can't see what the actual image is going to do. So I've learned to remember that to change that, I go into my display menu, which is the D, and that's another thing that I'll get into at a later stage. And on the second page of the D, there's my live view boost. And then I press the info button, you'll see it says when it's on, exposure compensation effects are not visible in the monitor. So I want to switch that off, and I'll go to manual shooting. This has changed, by the way. This has changed a little bit in the version 4 firmware. It never used to be as complicated as this. They managed to make it more complicated. But under manual shooting, if I go in there, it gives you a little story about what it's actually going to do in that particular mode. There's my up and down arrows to tell me that there are other options. So on option 2, live view brightness will not reflect exposure settings and will be adjusted for optimal viewing with slow frame rate for dark areas. Brightness of the final image will differ. So you go through here and you find one that actually works best for what you want to do. And that's basically it. Okay, right, so that's enough for this particular video. I don't want to make them too long. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it. If you are looking for any specific instruction on any particular item, be sure to let me know. And if you like the videos, please subscribe. I will be uploading as I get around to doing them. They unfortunately take quite a long time here with my slow upload speeds. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the flip side.